So good morning, everybody, and welcome to this second webinar in the series on green and circular economy practices in the Mediterranean. Today's webinar is on driving sustainable production and consumption through eco-labeling in the Mediterranean region. My name is David Smith, and I'll be your main facilitator today. We have a group of moderators that are sitting here with us today that can answer all of your questions and reply to you in the chat. And we just ask you in that sense just to place any questions that you have in the Q&A section, and just also to be aware that there is the interpretation both simultaneously in Arabic and French. Just quickly run through the agenda for this morning before we'll play a very short video just to explain a little bit how the Zoom platform works and some of the features that you can use on the Zoom webinar platform today. We'll first have a welcoming and an icebreaker session where we'll have a head of the sector of environment and blue economy from Alessandra Sensi that will provide us an opening and some welcoming remarks, followed by Mercè Boy-Leura, the Interreg Med Green Growth Coordinator. In the first session on the keynote speeches, we will have some really amazing speakers from the chair of the Prima Foundation, of Professor Angelo Riccaboni. We'll have the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations from Florence Tatanak, who is the Senior Officer of the Nutrition and Food Systems Division. And Ineke Vlot, the Chairperson of the Board of the EU Ecolabelling Scheme, will also be joining us with a very interesting keynote speech. We'll go into the second session, which will have an idea around some of the questions and answers that we can have, opening up to all of you as participants, where you can all have the opportunity to ask any questions that you would like. At any point, if you'd like to ask a question in the plenary session, just raise your hand in the webinar feature, and we can give you the floor to ask that question. We'll run through some Slido questions and answers. Some of them will be fun, some quiz, and some of them will be more serious, where we dive in deeper into some of the pre-webinar questions that you've already answered. The third session this morning will go into the real meat of the sustainable consumption and production through eco-labeling aspects, where we'll hear from projects of PEFMED Plus, InnoTranslact, Surefish, Aristoil Plus, and Stand Up. Before the last session, where we'll do a wrap-up and some conclusions, giving us an idea of what was discussed today, some of the steps forward, and a few recommendations that we can take forward following today's webinar. So with that, I'll just ask the host just to play that short video for it's 1 minute, just to give us an idea of how the Zoom platform works for you this morning.
Welcome to this webinar. As an attendee, you have access to some features. Here is a list of them. First, let's check the audio settings. You can access them from this button, or press this arrow to bring up a panel that will list all the audio outputs available on your device. You can also access the advanced audio settings from this button. If the host decides to give you the floor, this notification will appear, and you can decide whether to turn the microphone on immediately or keep it off and then turn it on later. In fact, as you may have noticed, now the words audio settings have been replaced by the classic button depicting the microphone that you can turn on and off as you wish. This arrow will open the panel seen previously, where this time you can choose the microphone to be used from those connected to your computer. To speak, click on the microphone or accept a further invitation from the panelists. You will notice by the change of icon that the microphone is now active. By opening the chat via this button, you will be able to send messages. You can also use this slot to decide whether you want to send messages to everyone or only to panelists and the host, for example, to ask them to take the floor. The senders and recipients of messages are always specified above each message. You can raise your hand to request to speak by clicking on this button. By clicking on the question and answer icon, you can ask questions and receive an immediate public or private answer. If panelists and the host choose to respond verbally, this notification will appear, followed by another notification indicating that the panelist believes his answer is complete. Panelists may also choose to respond in writing, either publicly or privately. Clicking on the interpretation button, you will open the panel where you can select your listening language. We recommend that you always disable the original audio by clicking the Mute Original Audio button. Finally, you can leave the event by clicking on this button. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, so without further ado, I would like to pass over to Alessandra Sensai, the head of Sensi, sorry, I keep getting that wrong. Head of Sector of the Environment and Blue Economy that will open the webinar for us. Over to you, Alessandra.
Many thanks, David, and many thanks to everybody. I mean, it's my pleasure to give you the welcome, a warm welcome on behalf actually of the UFM Secretariat, but also the co-presidencies, the EU and Jordan co-presidencies of the UFM. As it was mentioned, we are organizing this webinar together with the Interreg Green Growth community, but also with a wider range of partners that are here with us today, Prima, FAO, Interreg Med, CBC, and many others, which of course we would like really to thank for their commitment to this joint endeavor. Very, very briefly, let me recall that 2021 has been a very important year. Actually, at UFM, we had a triplet of very important ministerial declaration approved by the 42 Euromed countries, the one in February on sustainable blue economy, the one in June on energy, and the very recent one on environment and climate action, just approved, let's say, in Cairo a few days ago. These are all, let's say, supporting the policy tools towards, let's say, the transition for a green, blue and circular, let's say, economy, which the Euro-Mediterranean region has in a certain way already kicked off and started already in 2014. So this is a part of a broader, let's say, action and move that the region is kicking off and hopefully now even accelerating towards, let's say, a basic shift in its, let's say, economic system towards a more sustainable model, let's say, of development. Today, this webinar is part actually of a set of the webinars that we have identified on specific topics, which have been addressed as particularly important for the region. Of course, they tackle very important aspects related to sustainable consumption and production, which has been in a certain way, together with resource efficiency, the main, let's say, approach to green circular economy, and is also part, let's say, of our support to program on education for sustainable development, which is, let's say, a basic tool which we would like actually to make available to all those in the region that for different, let's say, reason can either not, let's say, benefit of other projects or dedicated, let's say, training activities. So with no further ado, and with a specific reference also to the Greener Med agenda, which is actually the main environment agenda adopted by the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change, I will give now the floor to my colleague Mercé and to the keynote speakers that are with us today. Thank you very much again.
Thank you. My name is Mercé Bairroura. I'm the coordinator of the Green Growth Community, and I will just like to share with you a few words about what the Green Growth Community is. It's a network of 17 innovation projects funded by the Interreg Med program, which is a territorial cooperation program including 13 countries from the northern shore of the Mediterranean region. And what we do as a community is to support our projects in their communication, transferring, and capitalization activities in order to inspire, on one side, innovative, green, and circular business models, and on the other side, inform public policies for a sustainable and a more competitive Mediterranean region. We articulate our actions through 4 main specific areas, which are food systems, eco-innovation, smart cities, and waste management, being sustainable production and consumption across a cutting theme. Today, we will hear the experience of 2 of our projects of the community, which are PevMed Plus and Haristoy Plus, but we also have other projects such as Embrace or Camargo, for instance, that work towards sustainable production processes, especially on agri-food products. But also they are raising awareness of consumers in order to make informed choices when purchasing their goods, in order to be able that they make informed choices on environmentally friendly products or high quality products. Last, I would like to acknowledge the cooperation that we have with the Union for the Mediterranean in the co-organization of these workshops. And in fact, we've been collaborating with them very closely for the last already 3 years when we received the labeling of the project, acknowledging the cooperation in the field of green and circular economy in the Mediterranean region. We cooperate in different activities, and for instance, we have contributed conceptually on the design of the Greener Med agenda that Alessandra just mentioned. So just I would like to finish and I pass the floor to David, the moderator, who will introduce the first speaker of today's session. Thank you very much, and I hope that you enjoy the workshop today.
Thank you very much, Mercé. The fantastic introduction, nice opening from Alessandra and Mercé really sets the scene for us here to this morning. Just before we go on to the first keynote speech, I'd just like to run through a very quick Slido session. This Slido session will just break the ice a little bit, let us know who's in the room, and just get you used to using Slido as well. So Slido really is just an ability for us to see how we work through different questions, etc. So here we have a QR code. So I'll do this together with you. Just use your phone, go and select the QR code. If you don't have your phone with you, you can join through the Slido website at slido.com using this number. So you'll see now, as you're on Slido, that's just asking you to type a question. That's because the poll hasn't started. So I'll start the poll now, and we'll just find out from which area are you connecting today? Are you from the North Mediterranean or from the South Mediterranean? So if you put your answer in there, push send, and that'll just give us an idea of where you're connecting from this morning. So I'll give you a few moments to settle into that. Okay, I see that the majority of us are connecting from the North Mediterranean, but also we have quite a few from outside of the Mediterranean region altogether, and some from the South Mediterranean. So as you start to get used to Slido, getting connected, we can see that the numbers of participants are going up, and we can see on the live view here as the results come in. So we go on to the next question, and this is the last of this block before we go into the keynotes, just to type in the country that you're connecting from today. So I'm here in Spain, so I'll put in Spain. So as you can see from this this word cloud, the majority of people that are connecting this morning are from Spain, Italy, or Greece, but we also have good representation from Tunisia, from Jordan. We also have from Egypt. But as the word grows, you can see that the majority are from these countries here. So welcome everybody. It's fantastic to have you here this morning with us. So this has just given us a little bit of an idea of how Slido works, and the reason for that is that during the engagement session we'll run a bit more into that. So I'll stop sharing my screen, and then we'll go directly into our first keynote speech. We are very privileged to be joined this morning by Professor Angelo Riccaboni. He is the chair of the Prima Foundation. Professor Riccaboni is a professor at the University of Siena, where his work supports the cooperation and joint research initiatives among Mediterranean countries, universities, and businesses, and the adoption of practical solutions for the future of the region. Professor Riccaboni is the chair of the Prima Foundation, which is a Euro-Mediterranean initiative promoting agri-food innovation, scientific diplomacy, and sustainable development. He is also the chair of the United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network in the Mediterranean. And this promotes networking among research centers and universities to support the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals and translate the latest expertise in sustainable development into action. With that, I'd like to open the floor to Professor Riccaboni to give us his keynote speech.
Thank you, David. Thank you, everybody. I hope you can hear me
perfectly.
And thanks for the invitation. Thanks to UFM. UFM is a very important partner for Prima. So thanks for what UFM is doing to promote sustainability in the Mediterranean. And thanks to Sweden for organizing this meeting together with the Interreg Mediterranean. So the title of this webinar is very important to my mind, driving sustainable production and consumption through ecolabelling, because we have to recognize how important is the behavior of consumers in order to promote sustainable food systems. Definitely, it is important what consumers do in order to move companies in the right direction. Companies do what the market would like to see. So we need to empower consumers in order to be sure that producers go in the right direction. So in order to do that, education is extremely important. We need to educate consumers. And we know that it's very difficult nowadays, especially because of the fake news, because of what is written on the web, because there are so many temptations to say things that are not true. So it's not an easy task to educate consumers. We do a lot at schools, we do a lot at universities, but we need to do more. This is the reason why labeling can be an important tool, but I would like to highlight that labeling should be done. We need to go in that direction, but labeling is not enough. So first of all, I always stress the point of education. I already did, but I want to highlight that labeling can be important, but also other tools are important, such as companies can foster responsible consumption through their marketing activities, through their promotional activities. they can reportion their products, they can reformulate their products. Furthermore, companies need to be assessed. We need to find assessment tools in order to be sure that companies are going the right direction. But also what is important is traceability. So we need also to promote research innovation and traceability, because we need to be sure that we are able to understand where a product comes from. So there's a bouquet of initiatives, and out of them also labeling is important, but we need to keep labeling within the right context. So I would like to share a few slides just to highlight some points, which are the following. I am convinced that we need to go in this direction, but we need also to start from which are the experiences so far, because labeling is extremely relevant. We need to have an innovative label able to improve traceability, authenticity, and consumers' awareness of the impacts of food. But the issues are very complex. So we cannot have easy solutions, simplistic solutions. We need to pay attention to solutions that we are offering, and we need to avoid the misleading messages. In this moment, we are in the presence of these major initiatives. These are the most important so far: Nutri-Score, EcoScore, and Nutri-Inform Battery. Just a few words. Nutri-Score is a very important system which is being promoted. It was invented by or proposed by France, and it's very interesting because with this label, with these traffic light colors, it is able to allow comparisons between similar foods, because it is based upon the characteristics of the food through a score. It is very easy to understand. A is the good one, E is the bad one. Which are the cons? The major cons is that products are evaluated as healthy or not healthy, and not for their contribution to the diet. And this, I think, is the major drawback, because what is important is that people are used to a sustainable and healthy diet. It is very difficult to say if a product is healthy or not healthy. There's also a tricky effect of labeling, because people will tend, they are already doing that, to compare among different products, while they should only compare among similar foods. If they compare a product with certain characteristics with another product, which will be the case, the consequence can be very bad for some products, which are not bad if they are consumed in the right quantity. Because the point is that in Nutri-Score, the major con is that there's no guidance on quantity, and the analysis refer to a prefixed quantity. If we have a look at another proposal, which is the Nutri-Inform Battery, this is interesting because it measures the contribution of products to healthy diets. So it looks at the percentage of nutrients assimilated with the consumption of the portion needed for a certain food. So the portion is a unit. The con is probably that is not clear in terms of visual content. So it's not as easy to understand as the Nutri-Score. The EcoScore is another interesting proposal, and it is very, very valuable because it is based upon the LCA analysis, which includes 13 categories of environmental impact. So it looks at the environmental impacts caused over the entire life cycle of the products. However, it's difficult to analyze pros and cons because it is very recent. So to the discussion, we propose just 2 points. It is positive because it's good to see the traffic light colors. It is easy to understand, but again, there could be the tricky effect of labeling, which means that people will tend to compare products which are very similar among themselves. So the field is extremely interesting. This is where we need to go. We need to work on these issues. But as I said before, we need to be careful not to make the wrong proposals or proposals which are misleading, because the effects can be not very good on the health of people, but also on our agricultural productions. So we as Prima, but I don't have time to talk about that, so I will just skip through what we are doing. What we are doing, we have a Prima, we are funding projects. We have a funding so far 129 projects with more than 160 million euros. And we have projects also addressing traceability and food fraud, about, most important, traditional Mediterranean foods, fish and seafood, tomato, rice, honey, cheese, meat, poultry, vegetables, and fruit. So I am at your disposal to give you more information what we are doing. I'm not spending time on it because otherwise I'm taking time to my colleagues. I would like just to say that innovation, research on these issues is extremely important because we are really at the beginning and we need to know more about pros and cons of different traceability systems. I would like to conclude just to say that, again, this is the right direction. We need to educate people. We need to we know that the private sector has a key role if consumers buy the right stuff, but we need to be careful about not to give a wrong, misleading message. So we need to think more about these very important supporting tools. Thanks for your attention, and back to you.
Thank you very much, Angela. Very, very interesting speech and some good foundation laid there for what will be a webinar where we'll dive into some of these points that you've raised. In case at this point, unfortunately, Professor Riccoboni has other commitments, and he will have to leave us. So if there is any question that you have for him at this point, we can open the floor to you. You just raise your hand, and we can you can ask him directly, or you can put it in the Q&A section, and we can ask it there. In the meantime, I do actually have one question for you from our side. In your own personal view, what types of policy or legislative changes do you think would be required to ensure that this type of eco-labeling and certification is introduced more widely, specifically in relation to the Mediterranean?
Thanks for this question, which is very, very important. I think that there is a very large debate about nutrition and the impact of food on environment and society, and the success of the Food System Summit, which FAO organized wonderfully. It was a great success, and I think that the conclusions were very important, because the conclusions were that there is not one size fits all solution. The conclusions were that we need to valorize local productions, local actors. We need to put peasants and farmers at the center of our attention. Differences are important. So I think that in that context, it emerged that the Mediterranean diet is very important, very relevant. And there are also other healthy and sustainable diets around the world. So we need to valorize these diets. So we need to be able to promote a consumption in line with these diets. So in my opinion, I would be in favor of an eco-labeling or a nutrition labeling able to promote this kind of evolution in terms of adoption, promotion of healthy diet like the Mediterranean diet. So I would be in favor of something which is able to show that, which is the contribution of our food to sustainable and healthy diets. So this is the key issue. I hope that within the process of Farm to Fork, the Farm to Fork strategy implementation, this will come out, because we need to go in this direction to promote healthy and sustainable diets through our products, through our labeling. And this is, we are at the beginning of this process.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for that well-detailed response in regards to that. We have another question. It's come from Reda, and the question here is, he is wondering if Prima will focus and promote projects regarding eco-labeling and food quality in the following years.
Yeah, we are working on the annual work plan of the next years, and the world has completely changed in the last 18 months. So we need to revise also our agenda, and definitely, given that nutrition has become so important also because of the COVID-19. So we are revising our annual work plan, and we will definitely introduce also this topic in the next course of Prima, because as I said before, there is a large conversation about it, which is very important, but we don't have still conclusive results. So we need to think how to do better. And it is so important. I mean, it is so important, but we need more discussion, more research, more innovation in it.
Fantastic, and their Prima is in order to provide that that focus, that funding, and that vision for these types of these types of aspects. I'm just checking the chats and questions in case there are any others. Oh, here we have one from Nancy Peña. How can those eco-label schemes be integrated with other initiatives such as product environmental footprint?
Okay, this is a very smart question. Yeah, there are, as I said before, there's a very intense conversation and an intense debate on these issues. And we need to be more holistic. We need to put together, I mean, also these other initiatives, very important one, but there are other initiatives. Think about all the efforts to assess companies. I mean, we need to coincide these all these processes, because also we need to be sure that the companies are assessed according to the same criteria. We cannot ask to write something on their products and then we do not assess companies on the same dimension. So I think that this is the effort that I'm sure the Commission will do, because as everybody knows, now we have the Code of Conduct, which is a very important advancement, but now we need to see how to implement it. So in the implementation of the Code of Conduct, we need to take into consideration also mechanisms and measures that are around, and to be sure that we have a rigorous answer to this question.
Fantastic, thank you. And we seem to have just one more question, and I think this would be a nice time also, because I'm aware that you'd need to leave us. So, and then we can go on to the next keynotes as well. So, as the last question here from Maria Caldero. She initially starts out by saying there was a great talk and so many projects and ideas that have come out of that. And she was wondering if about the initiatives to add in food labels with regards to some sort of distance metric that can easily valorize if you are buying a product from really far away or from home, as she says. I guess that this is a complex, and there's already the kilometer zero products as well as the country of origin, but was wondering if in terms of eco-labels, you can also consider the distance transport.
I mean, as the previous question proposal, you need also to understand which is the footprint, the carbon footprint of the products. So probably if we calculate the carbon footprint, we take into consideration also the distance of the food. So as I said, we need to put together different angles, and so far we have some solutions, but we need to improve them. And I always say education first, in the sense that people need to be aware of the relevance of the issues that our colleague raised just a few seconds ago, but we need also to be able to give a proper and a holistic answer. So I completely agree that we need to go in this direction, but as I said, carbon footprint could be a good answer to that.
Thank you very much, Angelo. That very insightful, very useful, and you can see the direction that we're going in the sense. So so with that, we'd like to thank you for your participation here this morning. And if you do have any other questions for Professor Riccoboni, please let us know, and we can pass them on to him later, and I'm sure you'd be able to help us answer those. So with that, thank you very much, and we'll now pass on to the next speaker.
Thank you very much to you and to UFM for inviting me. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, we will now go on to Florence Tatanak. Florence works at the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations since 2001. And she is currently the senior officer in the Food and Nutrition Division, which is headquartered in Rome, in Italy. She is a team leader of the Market Linkages and Value Chains team. And her areas of expertise are focused in the areas of sustainable food value chain development and inclusive business models, voluntary standards, and geographical indicators, public food procurement, and small and medium food enterprises development. She has an academic background in food engineering and has a PhD in economical geography from Paris University. With that, over to you, Florence.
Yes, thank you very much, David, and thank you very much for the organizers for inviting me to this very important and interesting event. Yeah, actually, my predecessor already said that the importance of this topic and how to look at it. It's not easy. It's a very complex issue. So I will look at it from the perspective of FAO as a food and agriculture organization, and the perspective mainly of the food producers, so small-scale farmers, small-scale enterprises, youth and women, and how they can take advantage of this eco-labeling also from the producer point of view, even if, as my predecessor says, it's also very important, the point of view of consumers. So if I just would like to give some background about what we are calling eco-labeling. Eco-labeling, so it's coming from the Agenda 21, adopted in Rio in 1992, so quite a lot of time. But the important thing is that it's a consumer information tool, so it is not a B2B, so it's really for consumers. It's a voluntary basis, so companies can choose if they want to enroll or not. It should be transparent and verifiable, so it should be a way to see how to transmit information to the consumers through the labeling. And actually, if we look at the ISO definitions, we are finding again this main component, voluntary. Here we also have the multiple criteria based, and also the idea of third-party program where we can have a certification scheme from third party. And for ISO, it's also based on life cycle consideration, so how to use these labels. And what does it mean for the different constituents? So for consumers, as we said, eco-labels guide their purchasing decision by providing information about what is behind the product. For businesses, eco-labels are the means of measuring performance and also communicating and marketing the environmental credential of the product. And also, it's important also for governments, because with these tools, they can encourage behavioral change of producers and consumers towards long-term sustainability. So we have different types of eco-labels according to ISO, but the more interesting one is maybe the first one, where we can eventually focus on specific impact, so not looking at the whole complexity of life cycle, but maybe specific impact in a specific sector. And this is what the type 1, what we also refer as certification schemes, or sustainability labeling, or sustainability standards, no? And where you have some a specific impact, for example, agriculture practices, also applied to a specific sector. So the main example are organic label or rainforest alliance that could be under this category. So now I would like to go to a specific case that I know well, that are geographical indications. So geographical indication by themselves are not an eco-labeling. It's a different kind of label. However, because sustainability is really crucial for their survival, and also because a lot of studies are available on this kind of certification, I think that the lesson learned could be used for other eco-labels, such as organic or other sustainability standards. So just a reminder about what is a geographical indication. It's a sign that is used on products that have a specific geographical origin and as quality or reputation that is due to that origin. So it is defined as an intellectual property right and can directly benefit a group of producers, in particular smallholders. It is built on specifications or code of practice or some kind of standards, let's say, that demonstrate the link to origin, and by defining the agriculture and processing practices to produce a specific quality, including, for example, the variety, the soil, climate consideration, or even traditional knowledge at each stage. So let's see how this GI can contribute to sustainability, and particularly also to sustainable food system and even to the SDGs. So the core of GI is first the territorial approach, and because it was designed for this, so the link with the geographical origin that is formalized into the specification. But it's also a collective and participatory approach, because all the stakeholders in the value chain are involved, and in particular, the smallholders are able to join forces in this value chain. And also there is an economic impact and territorial strategy with job creation and perspective for young people. It's also contributing to inclusive value chain and food system, where we can see that local producers as the main actors. They are the ones that are involved in the specification setting. So, and if it is well done, we can see some redistribution of benefits locally and a more balanced power distribution along the value chain. And also, it's very important for the smallholders and women empowerment in some traditional value chain where their role is quite important. It's also a market tool combined with public goods. So it's a very good way to have this public-private coordination. It's a market tool for the producers, but a public good for the government or the public authorities. And also the coordination, it's important across the level, national, local, and even international. And obviously, there is also an interest for the consumer to have a food diversity, so look at the cultural aspects and even the impact on nutrition. So we heard my colleague before talking about the impact on nutrition, but we also see that some of these products could be interesting for this. And we have guarantees on quality and origin for the consumers, which is the more important for them. So we did some years ago, in 2018, a study on economic impact of GI in a certain number of countries and specific product, and we really found a great impact on geographical indication. First, a robust impact on GI on the final product prices, from 20 to 50% increase, a better income redistribution to primary producers, increase of production, especially in the long term after possible initial decrease, market access enhanced, so new markets and growing markets with this certification scheme, more economic resilience, especially through diversification, even if we have the impression that it's one specific product, but it's also a way to decommoditize the product to avoid the dependency to global market and finding new niche markets. And it also has positive externalities, for example, for biodiversity by highlighting specific species and varieties. So just one example that I would like to give in Morocco with saffron of Talwin. So it's a product that is very anchored in local culture and enjoy a considerable reputation. So it has a PDO, no protected designation of origin, registered in 2010. And in the framework of the national law of Morocco. And it also received a lot of support, especially from, at that time, the Green Morocco Plan, le Plan Maroc Vert. And in this specific case, we also saw some great economic impact about the structural organization of the value chain, increased number of cooperatives, increase of prices, and diversification of markets for the PDO sales in supermarket and cities. So the key success factors for these GIs are really the specific quality and specification for the differentiation and added value, and the importance of innovations. Also, we saw in several cases. The organized collective action, it's very important to have the organization of the producers, but also the vertical coordination between the different stakeholders along the value chain, and the importance of trust between the stakeholders and the long experience, because we know that GI experiences are very long processes. But this is also building the capital of the participants. It's also an effective. It also needs an effective marketing strategy. So it's not only the GI by itself that will sell. You have to have really a marketing strategy behind the product. So the branding, targeting, accessing market, and sound and institutional system. So I think I am little late. I will try to go quickly through another initiative that we have with Origin, which is a network of geographical indication producers, to allow GI producers, so producers that are already registered with GI, to improve the sustainability within their value chain. So this strategy for sustainability for GI was adopted by the Origin Assembly, and it's used to give a pathway for producers to decide themselves which sustainability indicators they want to prioritize, how to assess them, and how to improve their GI performance by measuring these indicators, and how to communicate about them. So it's really useful also for them. So we can see even in a label or certificate scheme that is not directly aiming at sustainability, you can use tools to improve sustainability within this. And in this case, with a bottom-up approach, in the sense that the producers or the producer organization are choosing their own pathway and measuring their own indicators to upgrade them in the future. So it's an interesting way also to go in this pathway, and not to think that certification scheme is set in stone, and each labels can also evolve in time. So finally, as a conclusion, I would like to say that the experience on geographical indication shows that ecolabelling could be a useful tool for sustainable food system in the Mediterranean region. However, there is a need for comprehensive approaches, so it's not easy to do. We need to establish them well and to ensure their good implementation and use. And we also need to look at the trade-offs between the different pillars of sustainability. So it's important to have methodologies for share and information and decision making, and also to increase the capacity of local stakeholders to find their own solutions. So I will leave it like this, and I look forward for the discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Florence. Very interesting, and I think one of the points that I pulled out from that was how it can actually just you have a label, but it can change in time, and so it's not something static and implemented without changing. So I think, as we did with Angela, we'll ask one or two questions with you at this stage, and we already have one in the Q&A. It comes from Juanjo Ortega, and he asks, could GI be transferred to non-food products? I'm thinking in traditional industry sectors localized in specific regions, areas.
Yeah, actually, it depends mainly on the national legislation. But for example, in the EU, you already have a GI for a product from non-food product like artisanal product. Also in Asia, in China, there is a lot of GI for silk product, fibers product, etc. So from artisanal product, still coming from the agricultural sector, but not always. No, because you also have, for example, plates or porcelain, for example, in France. So this kind of product also can also be covered by GI.
Fantastic, thank you. And also there's actually there's a question from Alessandra. So Alessandra, I'll give you the floor, and you can ask the question directly.
Thank you very much, and I'm sorry for using this privileged tool of being able to talk. I should have probably put it in the questions and answers. Very interesting, Florence. Just a question that came actually to my mind is, would the GI not favor, for example, regions or areas which are already well known? Myself, I come from Italy. Imagine if Tuscany compete with definitely less known, but also equally good, also an interesting region. I mean, how could this gap? I mean, that would in a certain way, for example, make difficult for newcomers in a certain way, to show also their particularities compared to others that on the market are already very well known. This is my question, and thank you very much for your answer.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alessandra, for the question. Actually, it depends how you see GI. If you look at it exclusively as a marketing tool, effectively, is the biggest GI with more means for more resources for communication, publicity, etc., could have an advantage. But if you look at it as a way to promote the product also at a national, very local or regional level, then people could be interested to buy even in Umbria their own, or in Puglia their own olive oil instead of buying the one from Tuscany. So it also can be a way to promote the product locally, and you don't need to see always the big market or the national or even international market. It's true that the GI are also used in the international market and very, very renowned for that. But as FAO, we are really looking also at GI as a way to promote locally the product. And when we are promoting GI in Africa, for example, the products we are talking about are not known except in the region where they are produced or at national level, but they are not having so much reputation at the international level. But even though it's very important, even for the producers to be recognized locally as a quality product and have access to the local market or domestic market in a better way with better conditions.
Many thanks, Florence. Many thanks.
Thanks, Florence. We have two more questions in the Q&A. The first one comes from Rida, where he would just he asked, well, really early this morning before the talk, but saying that it's a researcher at the University of Carthage, and just wanted to know if there is any sort of assistance from FAO with regards to project funding and priorities within the ecolabel area.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. So FAO is not a funding agency, but we can give technical assistance to the country. So we are working quite a lot in Tunisia, actually. So it depends. The government is making some requests on specific topic. We can support looking at the different topics. So we worked already in Tunisia some years ago about the organic labeling system, certification schemes. We are still working on some project, olive oil sector, for example, or others. So yes, there is possibility. You just need to go through the, let's say, more official and formal channels for it. But you can contact me at the email on the presentation. I could reply maybe more specifically.
Thank you very much, Florence. So we have other questions from Victor and Rodin. Questions are noted, and we will give Florence an opportunity to answer them when we go into the engagement session in more general Q&A part. So your questions are noted, and they will be answered. Just for questions of time, we'll move on, and we'll now go on to the next keynote speech. So thank you so much, Florence, for that. But stay with us, and there are other questions that are coming up for you. So we have the privilege and honor to have Ineke Verlot with us as program manager, and is responsible for SMK's non-food department since 1996, including both SMK's activities as a competent body of the EU Ecolabel program of the European Commission and the National Milieucare program. After studying biology and environmental sciences, she worked in the Dutch Consumer Safety Institute. In 1990, she coordinated the feasibility study on the Dutch environmental ecolabel. And this basically resulted in SMK's foundation as National Environmental Labeling Institute in 1992. Since 2020, Ineke is the president of the EU Ecolabelling Board. She is also board member of the Dutch Association of Certification Scheme Developers since 2018. Currently, she chairs the expert group on the guidance and criteria for circular and fair ICT of the international CFIT Pact project. She is actively involved in the National Dutch Green Public Procurement Program and participates in its network of the European Commission. She has chaired many inter and national stakeholder meetings and workshops for ecolabels and green public procurement criteria development, as well as for their promotion through best practices and success stories. And with that, over to you, Ineke.
Thank you, David, and thank you for the invitation to speak here and to introduce the EU Ecolabel program of the European Commission in this webinar. I now start sharing my screen to show you some slides. Here we are. The theme of my presentation is about how to enhance sustainable production and consumption by ecolabel, especially in the Mediterranean region. I just talk first about EU ecolabel, then I'd like to touch upon sustainable public procurement, and final some conclusion and recommendations. EU ecolabel is a product policy instrument since 1992. Florence mentioned already that at that time, ecolabel as an instrument became well known through Rio. Since that time, the EU ecolabel has been involved in policies of the European Union. At the moment, that is in the European Green Deal, in the Circular Economy Action Plan, which was established last year, and also in the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And Florence mentioned already them related to food labeling. But you see, we have in common the Sustainable Development Goal number 12, responsible production and consumption. And the focus is slightly different on other SDGs for non-food labeling. I think Angelo mentioned already the empowerment of consumers and also producers and procurers with reliable product information through the instrument of EU ecolabel. Ecolabel also was mentioned by Angelo, substantiates green claims and prevents greenwashing, which is an actual theme also in the European policy development field. It also supports companies to provide sustainable production and services to demonstrate that indeed their activities and their products are more sustainable than others. The EU ecolabel is focused on non-food products. So it means that if you see the flower, it concerns non-food, more sustainable products and services. It doesn't have any link with the European leaf for organic products. So that's quite a different activities. Florence explained already about ISO type 1 ecolabels. The EU ecolabel is the only EU-wide ISO type 1 ecolabel in the non-food area. Multi-criteria approach, life cycle based, science-based, but also very important stakeholder consultation to make sure that all parties involved can share their knowledge and see how the development of criteria takes place and participate in that actively. It's also third-party verified for the independence and reliability of the ecolabel scheme. The criteria address the 10 to 20 best products and services on the market. So it's really directed towards the top front runners. And the criteria are updated regularly. As David said, the criteria are not set in stone. It's important to keep them dynamic and follow recent developments. Packaging is seen as a part of the product. So it means that packaging is not certified separately. It is a life cycle based approach, and packaging is one of the themes connected. The focus of the EU ecolabel is environmentally, and we are moving towards more sustainability topics like labor conditions in textile products connected to ILO standards and so on. The EU ecolabel program is managed by the European Commission and the member states. And it is also possible to certificate non-EU products if they are placed on the EU market. As I said, stakeholder involvement is considered key in the EU ecolabel. And you see the Joint Research Centre in the second column prepares the criteria, makes the investigations, and consults in ad hoc working groups the stakeholders. There's also a discussion in the EU ecolabelling board for specific themes and see how the development is going. And then finally, the regular committee with the member states decide upon the criteria. The EU ecolabel is awarded by competent bodies. Every member state in the European Union has a competent body. And as we have seen, countries like Spain and Italy and Greece have joined this webinar. In those countries, competent bodies, or sometimes even more competent bodies, are placed. These competent bodies ensure consistent, neutral, and reliable verification, being an independent third party. They sign contracts with license holders for the use of EU ecolabel, and they charge an application fee and an annual contribution. The applicant must present documentation proving compliance with the EU ecolabel criteria. This is just one simple sentence, but it may in fact be very difficult because traceability is considered important, also mentioned by Florence and Angelo. Because as an applicant, you do not only have to provide documentation about your own product process, but you have to go back in the chain using documentation, for instance, when you speak about detergents, ingredients. All ingredients must make sure that they meet certain requirements. So you then need material safety data sheets for every ingredient. But in fact, you need this kind of thorough approach to make sure that indeed you are bringing on the market a thoroughly more sustainable product or service. And there is, of course, guidance within the user manual for every product available. Outside the EU, you can make an application for your product to a competent body in any of the member states on which the product is to be placed or has already been placed on the EU market. Here you see the development of certificates awarded during the years. And now we are, despite of Brexit and COVID, at the highest amount of awarded products in the history of EU ecolabel, more than 83,000 products. Leading countries are Spain, Italy, France, and Germany. Here you see the distribution of awarded products per product group. The most popular products are paints, tissue paper, hard covering, that you have to think of ceramic tiles, textiles, and services, tourist accommodation services that are placed on booking services now with EU ecolabel mostly. And indoor cleaning services are also growing with the amount of awarded certificates. You find all the facts and figures on the EU ecolabel website. Now, do consumers know about EU ecolabel? Yes, they do know. The EU average in the Eurobarometer survey in 2017, which is the most recent figure available, 27% of the consumers have heard about EU ecolabel. And more than 80% of the consumers who know the EU ecolabel trust it. And that is a more recent figure of the Eurobarometer. So that's also important if you want to increase sustainable production and consumption through empowering the consumer. But now let's go to another important driver for EU ecolabeling. That is sustainable public procurement. Public authorities are major consumers. There is a huge purchasing power there. They can stimulate critical mass, and being a launching customer, stimulate innovation, and thus contribute in a very important way to sustainable production and consumption and the circular economy. For instance, in our country, the Netherlands, a very small country, the government purchases per year more than 73 billion in goods like roads and school books and school transports. So that is only in our country. And if you look at the whole of the EU gross domestic product, the public authorities' purchasing power represents 40%, 14%. So that can be huge. Sustainable public procurement provides needs and provides clear guidance in public tenders. The EU Green Public Procurement criteria, also available on the EU ecolabel and the EU website, and the ecolabels provide that guidance. Ecolabels support verification because the certificate ensures a high level of environmental performance and functional quality. But those ecolabels also provide open source criteria, which can be used in tenders under the conditions laid down in the Procurement Directive. Sustainable public procurement can set good and inspiring examples, as is also the case in this Circular and Fair ICT Pact project we've just started. So this is really an important opportunity and challenge to promote the uptake of EU Ecolabel and thus enhance sustainable production and consumption. Now coming to conclusions and recommendations. EU Ecolabel and sustainable public procurement create business opportunities for innovative frontrunner companies. Companies benefit from independent EU Ecolabel certification, economically and by reputation. And we really urge authorities, companies and institutions to profit from including EU Ecolabel in procurement tenders, because that really helps. And we suggest to aim to create a network of procurers in the Mediterranean region, contributing to a large collective sustainable demand, purchasing power. Another recommendation is to establish a platform or task force of non-EU Mediterranean countries without a competent body to join forces with the EU to enhance sustainable and production and consumption with EU Ecolabel as a driver. And you could imagine that information webinars and online training sessions by expert competent bodies could support the whole idea of applying for EU Ecolabels, thus contributing to more sustainability. And another idea is to collect best practices and effective procurement examples, including ecolabels, to facilitate the work of procurers. Well, we think that we can together reach out with EU Ecolabel as authorities, companies and consumers for the planet, and that we all can profit that, creating sustainable opportunities and benefits for all. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Ineke. That really interesting, and I very much like these end bits of the recommendations along with your conclusions. I think that really helps those that are in the room today to have an idea of where we're going specifically with the EU Ecolabel. So as I mentioned before, we now go into this second session of where we will open the floor to the participants. They'll be able to ask questions either directly or in the Q&A to both yourself and to Florence, and we can already have the first questions that were asked previously. And I think both yourself, Ineke, and Florence, you can look at answering this one that has come from Victor. The question is, what countries in the Mediterranean are more advanced in using ecolabels and GI? So perhaps maybe Ineke, you would like to start with that one, just in your own experience, in your own view, which countries in the Mediterranean are probably more advanced in using the EU Ecolabel?
Well, in fact, Spain and Italy have awarded the most EU Ecolabel products of the member states. So they are really well advanced in using this program and gaining results. In Spain, it's also interesting that there are quite a few competent bodies depending on the regions, and you'll find all the contact persons on the EU Ecolabel website. But I think in those countries there's a lot of experience with EU Ecolabel, and the other countries, of course, through networking together or creating a task force platform, can really learn a lot from those more, let's say, advanced countries.
Nice, thank you. Because a good insight of where we are in the Mediterranean in terms of that. Florence, do you have a different view with regards to ecolabels and GI, or which countries in the Mediterranean are more advanced?
Yes, well, I do not have the exact number just in my mind, but I think also Italy, France and Spain are the ones that are leading on the GI with the number of GI. So you can also have also information with the exact number on the EU page related with geographical indication. Or if you want to see the situation for other countries in the region, you can go to the origin database. I will put the link maybe in the chat for people to have the data, and they can see the number of registered GI in the world, and in particular in the region. But there are quite a lot of GI also registered in North Africa, in Morocco, Tunisia, and other countries in the region, Turkey.
Nice. So we can see a real mix across the Mediterranean, which is exactly what we want. And while we have you here in front of us, there is another question directly to you, Florence, and it's just from Rodden asking if you could give a short explanation regarding the idea of food labeling with food waste. So is there a connection between the two? Is there something with regards to food labeling and food waste that perhaps you're aware of from FAO?
Actually, this is a good question. We didn't look at it really, but maybe what I can say is when you have a geographical indication on a product which is quite it's a very high quality product, you avoid to waste it, no, because of the price. So, maybe intuitively, I would say there could be less waste. Food waste in this kind of product, but really I do not have data. But yeah, it's an interesting question, and at least in the food loss, let's say in the value chain, it's also a topic that is quite important. If you have a high value product, you make all possible choices to avoid to lose it in the way to the consumer, and when you have the consumer, you don't waste it so easily. So, but yeah, it would be interesting to look at it actually with more data and maybe studies.
Yeah, I agree with you that that question was really good, because it actually encapsulates exactly what this entire webinar series is about, where the previous webinar was on food losses and food waste, and when we look at green and circular economy practices, essentially eco-labeling, we need to look at even the idea of food losses and waste. So interesting area to work on and to discover more. We have another question, and I think this is a nice one for both of you to answer. There are many GI in Europe. Moreover, we have other labeling as organic or made from renewable energies, for example. And we were listening before to Professor Riccobani speaking about eco scores and Nutri scores. Do we have enough space on product packaging to include all these labels? Do you think that we could have the risk of consumer confusion with all of these labels coming forward? So perhaps maybe now we can ask you firstly, Ineke, to respond to that one in terms of EU eco label, and then we'll ask Florence to come in after that. So in your from your perspective, Ineke, what do you think in terms of the idea of over labeling products and perhaps consumer confusion with regards to the number of labels?
Well, it's always an interesting topic. Thank you for the question. The jungle of labels. Well, the good news is that in fact, all concerned think apparently that information on a product with an environmental touch will have an influence on the purchasing behavior of consumers. So it means that the labels are seen on products. But in fact, it looks like there are lots of reliable consumer information systems. But if you really investigate them, then lots of them are just green claims. And that is why the European Commission, but also some member states like our countries, have taken the initiative to prepare legislation for substantiating the need to substantiate green claims, because a claim is not the same as an EU eco-label. And if the consumer wants really to make a reliable, informed choice, then you could refer to the ISO Type 1 ecolabels, third-party verified labels, and so on. So if you really shift through all the labels, then a lot of them just fall through because they are not real reliable labels. But it doesn't mean that companies and others would like to demonstrate something with using their labels. So there's quite a philosophy behind that. On the other hand, there are, of course, quite a lot of labels, but organic labels are something completely different from, or fair trade labels from non-food ecolabels. But if I stick to the non-food ecolabels, it is really true that at the moment there is a movement of trying to harmonize those labels on the level of criteria and on their approaches. That is not very easy, but as we all serve the same target, we really are now moving towards exploring possibilities for harmonization. And I think in the future, the way forward. Just adding to harmonization of criteria and so on, in the previous session, it was asked whether the criteria of ecolabels are PEF-based, product environmental footprint based. And I wanted to add that the European Commission is now working on exploring how to use this product environmental footprint method in ecolabel criteria, for instance, in the pilot for textile criteria that will be investigated, just to add to that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ineke. And from your perspective, Florence, what do you see from FAO's perspective in terms of, as Ineke so rightly said, the jungle of labels?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with Ineke that we have to be careful to not overwhelm the consumer with too much information. Also, knowing the difference between the different labels. We think that it's true that too many labels can kill the labels, because at the end the consumer will not be able to see it. But also it's important for them to know exactly what each label means. No. So if it is, for example, the geographical indication, it's normally relate with the origin, geographical origin, but it could also relate with, as it relates with the reputation, to some of the criteria that are embedded in it. And actually, a lot of GI are already integrating, as presented, other labels or other certification scheme. For example, a lot of GI are also organic, or are part of a production with organic production. So it's also a way to try to integrate more and to give more information to the consumer in a way that is not it's not misleading. But yeah, it's important to harmonize between the different criteria and to be aware of the differences between the different certification schemes.
Nice, thank you. So we do have other questions, and they are coming through very nicely. Some really interesting ones that have actually come forward here. Just in terms of time, we'll move forward in the agenda. These questions are noted, and we can ask them in the project session, where we will have more time for listening to questions and answers. So Florence, Ineke, stick with us. We'll be able to ask you these questions as we move forward in the webinar. Right now, I think it would be an interesting part to get you all involved in a little bit of sort of engaging with what was the pre-webinar questions, and then also an idea on exactly what are your perspectives, what are your ideas as participants with regards to eco-labels and sustainable consumption and production within the Mediterranean. And so to try and start a little bit with the idea of giving you insights onto what were your answers in the pre-webinar questions, just a very short introduction to this. And then we can go into the Slido questions, where we'll delve a little bit deeper into what you've actually provided here. When we did ask with regards to the idea of your main areas of interest with regards to sustainable production and consumption through eco-labeling, the majority of you were actually looking at these new methodologies and processes and tools that you'd be able to learn not only from this webinar but further along. But I thought it was also really interesting that those that are participating here today are also looking at the idea of becoming a competent certification body and to have an understanding of what that actually means. So when we actually did ask the idea of on the next question on how eco-labels should be granted and whether they should be only for locally produced products, and then here the thinking is environmental impact of transport or trust in the environmental standards of different countries. In fact, the responses coming through are showing that there's really a neutral or a disagreement with this idea of labels only being locally produced. And I think that brings nicely to the idea that through the Mediterranean, as we move products, we can trust one another's labeling schemes. Looking at the different types of eco-labels, obviously, as we know, there's types 1, 2, and 3, whether it's certified by an external body, self-certified, or through an entire process. Really, the responses are looking at each one of them being more or less important in strengthening sustainable consumption and production. And I think this next question allows us to understand why they're all more or less equal, because really when we're looking at helping to motivate retailers or businesses to promote eco-labels, we're looking that obviously policy and regulation are important from your point of view. Competitive prices is another, but essentially consumer awareness is the one that takes the priority in that sense. So this has just provided us a bit of a background in terms of what your ideas are as participants in this webinar on where you think some of the issues should go. So if we jump back into the Slido section again with your phone, and if you've kept that up, you'll still see the poll available here for you. And we'll go now into a part that is actually quite fun. It's just a small quiz just to see who has been listening, who has maybe read some of the materials beforehand, and just gives us a chance to join in. So it's asking you just to put your name. You put your name in there. There I am, and you can all join the quiz. Okay, nice. I see that you've all managed to get back in, to put your names on there. So the idea behind the quiz is that there will be some questions. I'll read out the question for you. There'll be time to answer, and then we'll have a leaderboard at the end, and we'll see who answers the quickest in all of that. So let's jump right into the quiz then. Okay, the first question. How many member countries does the Union for the Mediterranean have? Okay. Let's see who got the answers correct. So we see here that the correct answer is 42. 50% of you had that correct, so well done. And Victor was the quickest, answering in 7 seconds. Well done. So let's see the next question. In the 2030 Greener Med Agenda, key action 6 is concerned with Okay, so here we have a range of answers, and the majority are saying support sustainable consumption and production, which would be logical given the webinar. But indeed, the key action 6 is to engage all stakeholders and raise awareness. So who had that correct and in the quickest time? Victor, you're killing it. So in 16 seconds, you got that one correct. Nice. All right, the next question. Eco-labeling schemes are mandatory for all products. True or false? False. Absolutely. Well done. Everybody got that one correct. So very good. And Victor, you're on it. You're on it. Nice. Okay, still leading. Next question. How many producers can produce the same, many producers can produce the same product, but the environmental impact of that product, according to the study, can vary by up to how many times? Okay, real range of answers there. The correct answer is actually 50 times according to that study. Let's see who had it correct. Oh, we missed the leaderboard there. 1 second, we'll go back. We'll get the leaderboard right at the end, so I'm not sure why it didn't come up on that side. Okay, let's go to the next question then. Which of the following statements is incorrect? What are some of the current gaps in eco-labeling? So this question was a little bit more tricky because it was asking for the incorrect one. But it looks like the majority of you got it correct, that an eco-label is only concerned with packaging and not the whole life cycle of the product. Incorrect. Okay, the next question. What is currently considered as a benefit to producers to include eco-labels on their products? That one was a bit more tricky because the time was a little bit less to try and answer it. But indeed, most of you got it correct. So well done there. The last question, really tough. Which ISO concerns type 1 eco-labeling? A third party conducts a multi-criteria assessment and awards a license to use a certain label. So which ISO concerns type 1 eco-labeling? Okay, so real neck and neck in the answers there, but the correct is ISO 14024. So well done to those that got it correct. And Victor, you've taken it. So well done there. You got 5 out of the 7 questions correct in the quickest time, followed by Albert and Daniela. So well done to everybody for playing along. And as I said, it was just a little bit of fun to get us engaged and to substantiate a little bit our knowledge in sustainable consumption and production and eco-labeling. We have a few very short questions now on a bit more serious aspects. No time limit here, and just like to understand from your perspective. And it was something that Ineke was actually mentioning. She said, are there sufficient opportunities to collaborate on eco-labeling schemes in the Mediterranean? Okay, so we can see that the majority of you are saying, in fact, there aren't enough opportunities to collaborate on these schemes. And so this was actually following one of the recommendations that Ineke mentioned, that perhaps there is scope and need for more collaboration opportunities in that sense. Okay, the next question is on how do you currently collaborate on ecolabelling schemes? So those that have actually answered, there are some opportunities, there are some ways to collaborate. Which ways are those? We've got networks and coalitions, different types of movements, or strategic alliances, strategic co-funding. These are all possibilities in terms of collaborating on ecolabel schemes. Okay, so here we can see that that indeed between networks and public-private partnerships are definitely the most commonly used as part of the participants here today, the ways of collaborating on these different types of eco-labeling schemes. That's very interesting. These results and what we will be gathering from here will follow up in terms of actions and those recommendations taking forward. So we'll have a look at these types of areas when we finish the webinar today. And so this is an open question. And really, we would just like to know from your point of view, what can incentivize producers to sign up to an ecolabel scheme? As we know, they are voluntary schemes. So what type of incentives can there be for producers to sign up to the scheme? Okay, so here we have some very interesting answers that we can. Some are saying to make the eco-labeling indeed mandatory, increase the knowledge of the production cost in terms of energy and resources, the knowledge about ecolabel and its products, and I think that goes hand in hand with the idea of clearer ideas of the benefits to the producers, better training or trade facilities, better marketing, less administrative constraints, and more technical support, better knowledge about the products, and in terms of promotion as well, also really important. Tailor-made trainings, I think that's a really interesting one. Financial support in terms of soft loans. Really nice responses there. All of these will be taking up and following up on open European markets for their products. Nice. One of the barriers that was mentioned to the widespread implementation of eco-labeling is indeed consumer awareness. And this was something that was raised in the previous question. So what, in your opinion, could be done to increase consumer awareness? So as participants and as consumers, we know that we need obviously better awareness. So what, in your opinion, could be done to increase consumer awareness? Some really nice answers coming through here. We've got the idea of schools, education in schools, opening this up to those types of curricula, getting promotion, awareness campaigns, medias and networks and common label schemes. There are too many labels now. Increasing education, enhance the trust, advertising on local and national media. Harmonization, again, this idea of bringing the labels together. Providing the economic benefits for choosing a sustainable product, nice. And using recognized common labels. Very nice, yeah. Some really harmonized inputs here that give us a real idea that we're looking at communication, harmonization, and promoting education through schools as some of the options. So this is the last question. What would you like to see as a follow-up to the webinar? We can have a second webinar diving deeper into the subject. We can have field learning visits. We can create or enhance existing networks or working bodies or working groups on this subject. Okay, so here we can see that there's a very clear answer there to have a technical course on the specific details of eco-labeling as one of the most important, followed by the idea of creating or enhancing these working groups, and by having field learning visits to see these in action. And it's indeed these field learning visits or seeing it in action is the next session that we go directly into, which is onto the project's side. So with that, we go directly into that session. We'll have 5 really interesting projects that are giving you a real idea of exactly what is happening in this area and who exactly is participating in these types of projects. I've just had the communication from Marco Della Veld that unfortunately has another commitment, so we'll push him to the top of the project presentation. So Marco will give us an idea of the Prima project that is focused on sure fish. So without further ado, directly over to you, Marco, to give us a 5-minute presentation on this project.
Yes, thanks a lot for the floor, for this super interesting opportunity. Please tell me if you can see my screen. Just 1 second.
Yes, we can see your screen and presentation, just not in presentation mode.
Okay, now it's in presentation mode. Okay, Surefish is a project founded by Prima under the umbrella of Horizon Europe and founded in the call of 2019 in section 1, focus on agro-food value chain. So the name of the project is Fostering Mediterranean Fish, Ensuring Traceability and Authenticity. So our main scope is to define a system in order to have and to trace the fish, in particular in Mediterranean area where you have several frauds. So the main scope of our project are quality research to generate both intrinsic and extrinsic fish attributes, which potentially affect consumer preferences, and economic analysis to quantify the effect of these variables on consumer preferences and purchase intention, and sensory evaluation with a panel of 50 consumers to evaluate the effect of intrinsic attribute on consumer acceptability and fishness and authenticity perception. In order to reach these three main results of our project, we have a 3 years project with a project budget of around 1.8 million euro and with 5 Mediterranean countries involved for a total of 13 partners and 4 demo sites. The partners are coming from Tunisia, Morocco, and Lebanon, from the South River of the Mediterranean, and from Italy and Spain, speaking of the North River of the Mediterranean. Here you can see the approach that we are following to develop our project and to give some concrete tool to the end user and to the fisheries in order to control and achieve the quality of the final product. We have 4 pilots, 1 in Tunisia, 1 in Egypt, 1 in Lebanon, and 1 in Spain. And we are focused, we have a cloud platform in order to have information about the packaging and the cold chain with RFID data logger, labeling, temperature. We have information about traceability with the ICT tool, mobile device, blockchain, data acquisition, system integration, and we have information about the authenticity in terms of definition, validation, and protocols. This information will be elaborated by this platform, and they give to the end user the information using an app or a website. In particular, the end user, in terms of consumer, may have information about traceability info for customer, authenticity of the final product, and human expectation data. From the other side, the fish producer can have information about traceability over supply chain and data about customer prices, finances, inventory, and supplier and provides. So this is the approach that we are following, and this is a special focus on the traceability. So what we are going to monitor is the species substitution in order to not have frauds, mislabeling of fish to cancel the geographical origin, the farmed fish versus wild fish, and the clear use of food, and previous frozen fish sold as a fresh. In order to make it, we have built in our system this innovation solution that monitoring all the chain, starting from the fish capture, moving to the onboard processing, the inland processing, and the final step is retailer or importer. Using the supply chain, today we are able to monitor all the parameters during all the logistic chain, using sensor and labeling and smart labeling and smart tab in order to give to the final customer, the retailer and importer all the needed information, and to be sure to give the traceability and the authenticity of the final products. Here you can see the partners that are involved in this project. We are in the middle of our development, so the test and the pilots, we will start now in the second part of the project. And I would like to thank again you for this really interesting opportunity from one side, and from the other side, the Prima Foundation that have decided to founding this project. And we are happy and proud to be part of this group.
Thank you very much, Marco. Yeah, very interesting to see what you are doing, and especially with the blockchain type technology within that area. Thank you for that presentation. Without further delay, we'll go directly on to Joan Colon Jorda to tell us a little bit about the InnoTranslact project from the Interreg POC-TEFA program. Over to you, Joan.
Thank you very much, David. David, can you confirm, please, that you see my screen?
Perfectly, thank you.
Thank you. So today we're going to present different ecolabelling experiences in the agri-food sector. And as David was saying, we are going to be presenting a tool that we have developed into the framework of the InnoTranslact project, which was an Interreg POC-TEFA, dealing with the traditional dairy sector, which main goal was to promote the sustainable development of that sector and to increase their competitiveness. But I would like to also take this opportunity to also present some other works that we have been done directly with companies, because I think it's really important to showcase real case applications of what can be done with these methodologies that we have been talking about, and demonstrate that there are currently companies in the agri-food sector that are already taking the first steps in the ecolabelling and putting ecolabeled products in the market, such as the carbon footprint, water footprint, or also the above mentioned product environmental footprint that we have been talking in the previous presentations. So we'll start by quickly presenting the methodology that we use for all these assessments. We always like to say this is a continuous process. When you are starting towards a sustainable path in your company, you are not just doing it once. Once you start this work, it's a continuous project and forever. And of course, just as a starting point, you need to do an assessment. There is no improvement, there is no nothing without knowing what is going on in your process. So everything starts with an environmental assessment, which allows you to identify hotspots or critical aspects of your process. And then, of course, once these hotspots are identified, it allows you to suggest improvement. And this is really important to be able to allocate correctly the limited economical resources that you have on hand. So it's very important to identify these critical points and to suggest improvements. And once these improvements are applied, we really think it's very, very important to do a good communication with your clients and customers, because of course you are always doing this thing first of all because you believe in it, so you really believe that moving to a sustainable future it's important, but again it's also important to communicate that you are doing things right. So once you have communicated the new procedures or the new improvements that you have applied, you need to start again. So where are you now? And just go to the process again and again. To do that, it's very important to have easy to use tools. Normally, these kind of sustainable tools based on LCA approaches that are in use for almost everyone are quite complex, and only professionals more or less can use it. So it's not easy for small or mid-sized companies to implement this kind of tools in their daily routine. So what we really think it's necessary is to start developing tailored tools for specific sectors. And this is what we have done in Interreg POC-TEFA project in InnoTranslact, in which we have developed a product environmental footprint compliant tool to assess the products from the dairy sector, which are milk, yogurts, cheese, etc., etc. So right now, this is an Excel-based tool that is free to download and free to use, always keeping in mind that this only can be used under the framework of product environmental footprint studies. And what is very nice about this tool is that it does include all the technical stuff, all the technical details that a normal person that is not a professional of LCA cannot do. which is the emission models, the allocations, the circular footprint formula, all the complicated stuff. It's already done for you, and you just need to introduce the data in an easy to use forms, and then you can get product environmental footprint compliant results. So as I said, this is free to download and to use. And this is just an example. And we think that these kind of tools should be already produced for almost every sector, because every sector has its own specificities. And well, and we think it's very important. And just to finish, we want to show you some real examples we have done. In our team, we are quite experts on applying these technologies with companies, and we offer consultancy to different companies. And here we just want to present two different products that we have ecolabeled using the ISO, the carbon footprint ISO and the water footprint ISOs. In one case, a cheese in which we used the tool developed that I just presented, and a Spanish ham in which we get the carbon and water footprint ecolabels. As a key takeaway messages, I would like to just give some points. And for me, one of the main ones is that during the last couple of years, we have seen a huge increase on interest on these ecolabelings directly by companies. So if you look at 5-10 years ago, yeah, you heard about the climate change and carbon footprint, but it's just during the 3-4 past years that we have seen a huge increase. So we think this will be something really important in the future and with a huge growth potential. We see that almost all companies have this sustainability and also environmental, but also social as a key part of their strategy. So, well, we think, again, it will drive the growth of the sustainability issues. But at the same time, we really see that the companies does not have yet the knowledge to apply these technologies in an easy way. So I fully agree that one of the things more necessary is to provide trainings to these companies, because they really need that. And finally, as I was saying, there is the need to develop easy to use tools for the companies and not only to rely on the sustainability experts and professional software. So I think there is a huge room for improvement in that area. So this is all by my side. So thank you very much. And I will be glad to answer any question.
Thank you very much, John. Very interesting to see as well this idea of having a platform taking away that administrative burden from the companies. One of the points that was actually raised in the Slido question. So really good to see a project working on that. The next speaker is Nicola from ENEA. My apologies to Nicola. You were meant to go first, and at the moment you're going third. So, but Nicola, without further ado, could you please tell us a little bit about the PEF-Med Plus project from Interreg Med program? Over to you, Nicola.
Thank you, David, and thank you, the organizers, for the opportunity to listen, but also to introduce our project briefly to you. I will be very synthetic, just showing you some slides that can help us to better. Yes, here we are. Okay. To introduce our projects, that is PEF-Med Plus. Med is Mediterranean and PEF is product environmental footprint. And this is a project that just started some months ago, and we are trying to capitalize a previous experience about the product environmental footprint in the agri-food sector in the Mediterranean countries that have some specific issues that we would like to highlight. The context is rapidly evolving, and we listened before from the speakers all the relevant issues. So I will not lose my time, but there is an increasing consensus and a growing consumer awareness about the food chain and its impacts. So we would like to focus on and if product environmental footprint methods could be, a methodology could be a good option for the southern Mediterranean countries of the European Union. And we are moving from PEFMED, that is the previous projects that we performed from 2016 to 2019, and now we are doing PEFMED Plus. Plus means that we are adding something. We are trying to transfer our previous experience from PEFMED and to enlarge our ability to impact on the agri-food sector. So PEFMED was a project dealing with the real application of product environmental footprint method to some specific food products, including oil, wine, meat, bottled water, and so on, in different European countries. Then we moved from PEFMED to PEFMED Plus. Plus means we are trying to capitalize the previous experience and then to transfer also tools and methods that we developed in the previous projects. In some new countries, we applied for the Interreg Med call, and we proposed to promote the PEF methodology and PEF knowledge in the Balkans area. So we included some European countries, Italy and French and Spain and Greece, together with 3 Eastern European countries, Montenegro, Croatia, Bosnia, and Herzegovina. And we are trying to apply and to transfer our experience in these countries. What we are doing, we developed in PEFMED some tools and methods. One is very similar to the one that we listed before in the previous project presented by Dr. Colon, and it's a PEF tool, very simplified, because we need to deal with the size and the ability and the skills of very small and medium enterprises that are very often involved in this process. And this tool can help to make some simplified qualitative and quantitative assessment of the product that they are going to produce and their environmental impact. Then also we try to take into account that the environmental side is important, but we have to take into account also the value of many social and economic indicators that could help the enterprise to better identify also where they are and where they could be if they include or if they start to make the pathway to the product environmental footprint. And then also we include another simple tool that are more than 60 info sheets of different best practices solution that could help the small and medium enterprises to make their production process more green. And we pushed a lot of efforts to improve our communication to the different stakeholders that we are trying to involve. So we are going to use a lot of socials, a lot of efforts on PEFMED wiki platform and the website to spread information and to be linked to the different stakeholders in each different countries we are working with. Last, but I guess very important, what we learned from our experience, that there are many differences in terms of awareness in different countries about the environmental performance of food production and consumption, that different agri-food sectors have a different perception. So when we are speaking with milk and cheese and meat or wine and oil, we have different attitude to this kind of labeling, because the market condition and also consumer trends are different. That there are problems for smaller agri-food companies to deal with this kind of labeling. And maybe the most important is that we also need to make a kind of capacity building campaign for workers inside the small agri-food companies. These are, in my opinion, in our opinion, the most important lesson learned from our experience. And I guess that I can close here and can wait for questions and answer to better explain our project goals.
Thank you very
Thank
much, Nicola. Really interesting to see how you've taken the eco-labeling to type of sustainability labeling, including these social economic aspects and indicators. So some really interesting work there that you guys are doing. So we'll go directly onto the next project from Emilia, and this is also as part of the Interreg Med program. And will give us a little bit of an outline of the Aristo Oil Plus project. So over to you, Emilia.
Good morning. Thanks to all for inviting us for this interesting webinar, and also for the speeches that were before me. Okay, I hope you can see my screen.
Perfectly.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to present the Aristo Oil Plus project that, as you already said, is an Interreg Mediterranean cooperation project and part of the Green Growth community. First of all, I would like to introduce the Aristo Oil project that was opened in 2016. And where took part 5 countries that are the main producers of olive oil in Europe: Spain, Italy, Greece, but also Croatia and Cyprus. And as the previous project PEFMED, also for Aristo Oil, this year there is an Aristo Oil Plus project where we involved other countries to transfer the methodologies and tools that we have been implemented during the Aristo Oil, that are Montenegro, other parts of Spain, and central part of Italy. The questions that we did, that partners did, were mainly: how much do consumers know about the healthy olive oil? Because the main aim of Aristo Oil project was to build an Aristo Oil Mediterranean healthy olive oil cluster. And also, how much do producers know about the methods to produce the best olive oil, the high quality olive oil? So through our project, we would like to increase the consciousness of Mediterranean olive oil actors about the benefits and the innovative methods for producing healthy extra virgin olive oil, but also to increase the consumers' awareness about the quality and the healthy characteristics of extra virgin olive oils rich in polyphenols, and to establish a new category of this high quality olive oil with an innovative approach, and as I said, to create this cluster, this Mediterranean healthy olive oil cluster, to put together the stakeholders in the olive oil sector, support and services to develop a competitive advantage for their products. What we focus on is the olive oil health claims, because consumers really know very, very few characteristics about olive oil, because as you can see in this label, there can be different kind of information that we can give to consumers about polyphenols. So the contribution of polyphenol, that is the health claim that we focused on this project, but also olive oil is rich in vitamin E, and oleic acid is a very the replacement for the unsaturated fat that contributes for the cholesterol, for the good cholesterol. So we focused on this. Our methodology was so in 2 different levels. One for the health claim, so how to help producers to measure the level of polyphenols in their olive oil, following the health claim that says that olive oil polyphenols contribute to the protection of blood lipids from oxidative stress. This is a claim that is authorized by EFSA, and only for olive oil, which contains at least 5 milligrams of hydroxytyrosol and its derivatives per 20 milligrams of olive oil. And we implemented, together with our scientific partners, the Aristometro, that is a tool that can measure the level of these polyphenols in just 30 minutes. From the other side, we try to also produce the guidelines to help producers to produce a better quality olive oil. And there was an analysis of more than 5,000 olive oil samples where we showed data about polyphenol concentration, but also the variety, the malaxation time and temperature, the meal types that they use, but also the harvesting time. All these factors contribute to have a better quality olive oil, not only from the side of polyphenols, but to have an extra virgin olive oil. What are the key messages that we can, with our project, we can transfer to you? With the research made, we can say that a lot of extra virgin olive oils have an high potential for the protection of human health through the polyphenols, and also there is a positive correlation between extra virgin olive oil and with the high concentration of polyphenols and the anticipation of harvesting date. So this is a message for producers mainly. From the side of consumers, of course, there is much work to do, because there is the need for the consumers to find and identify the healthy extra virgin olive oil. The health claim can be one of the, of course, one thing, but the communication should be more emphasized. So in synthesis, what we concluded is that not all extra virgin olive oils are healthy at the same way. In fact, when you go to the supermarket, you find a lot of products, and it's very, very difficult to choose. Usually consumers look at the price. We don't look at the different labels that are in the bottles. Of course, there is a difficulty in putting all the labels in the label. And for example, just want to replace to what Professor Riccaboni said at the beginning of the meeting about the Nutri-Score. The olive oil is not well indicated for the Nutri-Score, because of course it is a lipid. So, but there are some olive oils, and this is the main method, that can have healthy features. So our final message is that not all extra virgin olive oils are the same. Thanks a lot. If you want to know more about our project, please go to our website and social media.
Thank you very much, Emilia. Yeah, so good message there. Not all virgin extra olive oils are the same. So good basis to have more communication and education for consumers. We'll go directly into our last project. This is a very interesting project, which isn't specifically focused on labeling, but more on the idea of sustainable consumption and production. and within the fashion sector. So we've had a real insight into the food and lactic areas of labeling, but this is a nice one to have something a little bit different from the fashion side. So with that, over to you, Martin, from the NECBC Med program, and to tell us a little bit about the Stand Up project.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you, David, for the introduction. Thanks to Alessandra for the invitation, and thanks to the people behind the Interreg Med Green Growth community for the huge work they are putting to really foster the network and sharing of experience between many different initiatives. I mean, today's meeting is very inspiring. We learned a lot, and I mean, personally, I would be eager to continue to work together, exchange good practice, but also put them into practice actually by merging our specific experience and a range of implementation, let's say. So it's a very interesting webinar. So moving on to the Stand Up project, it's one of the 80 projects we are currently funding within this programming period. I will just try to share my screen. Sorry for the delay. So yeah, as David was mentioning here, we're moving to the fashion and textile sector. So it's no secret that the fashion industry, and especially in the, let's say, last decade with the rise of the fast fashion business, the carbon footprint and the environmental footprint of this fashion and textile industry is huge. There is no discussion on this. I mean, huge quantity of clothes is produced, huge quantity of clothes is waste. And this is an issue for the environment. And as you can see from this slide with data I found in a report of the European Parliament, I mean, the use of natural resources of water or carbon emission from this industry is just so challenging that really we need to put in place more circularity in this industry, starting from design to production and all the way to the consumer. So the project I will be presenting, the Stand Up project, is dealing with the design and production phase, trying to foster circularity in the sector by really encouraging recycling, reusing and upcycling, and focusing on also on toxic-free material. It's one of the different projects we have in the fashion and textile industry, and it's interesting to see how our projects are picking up really, let's say, leading business sectors for the economic development of the Mediterranean area, but are putting sustainability in it while trying to maintain profitability. So this is the philosophy really behind this project. It's injecting circularity, sustainability into one specific business sector, but still maintaining profitability. So mixing and bringing the best of both worlds, hopefully, and it's being implemented in Spain, Lebanon, Tunisia, Italy, Tunisia, and Egypt. So I won't go into details with all the achievements that are currently being developed and the tools that are being implemented, but really this project is really interesting, but because they are working directly with fashion creators, fashion designers, so they're really touching and engaging the end user, and at a more global level, they're really trying to develop an ecosystem to support a more sustainable sector while maintaining really a business and profitability vision. What I'll retain from this project, it's the methodology. So how they are currently supporting over 200 fashion and textile entrepreneurs. So they are working both with, let's say, established business that need to scale up and inject more sustainability into their business model, but they are also supporting the creation of new startup. And it's an interesting project because they are dealing a lot with young people and with a very vibrant sector of fashion. So they've developed a model for enhancing the capacity of these young entrepreneurs to develop green business models. And it's based on different phases. First of all, the capacity building, the training. So where to grab the information, how to get the expertise to make a business still profitable, but also with low impact on the environment. So they will give the keys to that for the young entrepreneurs. But they also provide direct financial support through small grants, which is, in our opinion, a great added value, because behind capacity building, behind training, behind skills development, there is also financial support really to help this startup scale up, to acquire more knowledge, to acquire expertise, but also to build materials for sustainable production of textile material. They also link the entrepreneurs with potential investors, and here they make very good use of a huge network at Mediterranean level. So here the cooperation component is essential for the success of this project. And finally, they will support the best and the most successful at the end of this incubation path entrepreneurs with a soft landing voucher, really to consolidate their business or their business idea, because we are dealing with early stage and also consolidated business. We want to become more sustainable, with more sustainable production processes in the textile and fashion industry. So here are some of the initiatives that are currently supporting. There are some very nice and exemplary stories, I think, in this project. Like they are supporting this Refabric startup, to is the very first business in Italy, which is fully upcycling toxic-free, cruelty-free cashmere in Tuscany. So it's a local, let's say, supply chain, and they're regenerating fibers from old jumpers. So here we are trying to build a sustainable and circular business model, a production model, also really at local, with a supply at local level. Also, they are mixing different business sectors, like they are using in Tunisia. They are supporting a startup which is transforming textile waste that would be designated to be thrown away or to be incinerated. So with a waste of resources and also impact on the environment. And this textile waste actually is turned into thermal insulation and ecological bricks for construction. So I think that these are very, very interesting takes from this project. So what we have witnessed more at a global perspective from the program management with our 80 projects is that circularity really needs to break all its barriers and needs to be injected in so many different key sectors for the development, like tourism has a huge carbon footprint. So there we should support the SMEs and the operators to have more circular and green business model. The agro-food, we've been talking about this in this sector and in this webinar. So I've seen a lot of very positive example, but also through our program, we have different projects where training and skills development, social inclusion paths are really based on the potential of the circular and green economy. So it's also about building a culture, changing behaviors. And as a final take, really it's to make projects and our initiative successful. It's true that we'll be developing a lot of interesting output, a lot of interesting knowledge, but we really need to work with end users, with the stakeholders. And I think again that this stand-up project is exemplary, because the people from the sector, the fashion entrepreneurs, the designer, are really the main protagonists of the project. So they benefit directly from the expertise of the project. And we believe that this makes really project successful. There is a community between experts, but also between real people, real entrepreneurs that are eager to turn their business into more sustainable venture, but are involved in the project. And that makes the project really successful. Just on a side note, next Tuesday we have a side event at COP26 with the ClimaMed and ClimaMed initiative and the Covenant of Mayors. So I all invite you to join us from 6 in the late afternoon, and all the information is on our website. Thank you again, David, for the invitation.
Thank you very much, Martin. Thank you for that insight. Some really interesting work happening there, and it's great to see this type of action happening in what you mentioned is a big problem in terms of fast fashion and the unsustainability of the sector. So good to see some work happening there. At this point, we would go directly into the conclusions, the wrap up of the webinar. And I'd just like to take this opportunity from myself as the main facilitator, just to thank all of the speakers, to thank the keynote speakers especially for your great inputs and for all the presentations that have taken place here today. Following up on this webinar, we will send out some conclusions and some actions and recommendations that have come out of this. So these follow up. And with that, I would just pass on to Alessandra and to Mercè to close this webinar for us today. From my side, thank you very much, everyone.
Many thanks, David, and many thanks to everybody. It was really a very interesting and dynamic webinar. In a certain way, I think we succeeded to make of it capacity building per se, but also capitalize on projects and actually putting together a lot of inputs for future action. So many thanks really to the speakers and participants for the very inspiring, let's say, perspective that have given to us, but also, you know, the inputs received and question raised, which indeed, I mean, open up to, you know, defining even more clearly the way forward. As it was already said, I mean, you know, this was very important for the activities that we are doing, also the implementation of the Greener Med agenda with respect to sustainable consumption and production, education, and it was also, you know, very interesting also the point raised by Martin just a few minutes ago about, you know, the small grants and the support also to begin into the startups. So if we want, let's say, in a certain way also to condense what was said, it was interesting to bring to the attention that indeed labeling is no longer strictly environmental. It's more and more, as we said, also taking into consideration more and wider sustainability consideration, also going into socioeconomic and labor issue, the need, of course, for harmonization of the labeling and certification, the need to have also more information on what's happening in the non-EU countries belonging to the Mediterranean region. And also, you know, the reflection on eventually bringing on board these more structurally also with the Southern Med countries at the level also of the competent, let's say, authorities in the broader sense, as well as to incentivize ecolabels through financial support, tax benefits of loans, and so on. So thank you also from my side. Thank you also on behalf of the co-presidencies. We will indeed wrap up on the main points, and we'll follow up also with more activities, which we will announce, of course, through our channels. Now I'll give the floor to Mercè, and that's all from my side. Thank you so much for your participation.
Thank you. I would just like to add a couple of more points that were discussed in several presentations. That is the need of raising awareness. Also, it was one of the highlighted factors that can motivate businesses in adopting these eco-labeling schemes or certification schemes. So education, raising awareness campaigns are key in the whole Mediterranean region, since it was detected already that there are different perceptions in different countries. So cooperation and cooperation projects help in achieving this objective. And second as well, need to collaborate more between the private and public sector and build public-private partnerships. And the private sector here is a key role. And what these projects are doing, and they show it today, is capacity building programs in the technical aspects to apply these methodologies to obtain the certifications, but as well, for instance, on having effective marketing strategies in order to allow them to sell these products in the correct way, and also to provide more information for the consumers. So this was very interesting, and that's what we could see as well from your messages on the chat. So thank you very much for your participation, to all the projects, to all the keynote speakers. And if you are more interested on this topic, you can follow the social media of the Interreg Green Growth community, for instance, but also from all these projects that are working more specifically on the topics that they presented. And we will also study with the UFM how we can follow up this webinar, as you suggested that, for instance, a more technical webinar will be useful. So we will see what are the possibilities, and we hope that we will be able to provide you this information. So we keep in touch. Thank you very much for your participation, and have a nice day. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.